Hi everyone, it's Tom with the LEC preview of the 6th week of the LEC Spring Split 2022. We are now entering the final stages of the league, the regular split at least, so we're gonna see how the teams have been doing first and comment a bit on that, and then we'll look ahead at the matches that are gonna be played this week. So we begin with Astralis, who got their first win, finally, in the LEC last week. They beat Rogue, which was very unexpected, to be honest, because Rogue was 9-0 at that point, and Astralis obviously 0-9. Even though it was a bit of a freebie, I think the way Rogue played, they played very loose. They had an Ari mid as a test, I guess, and it just didn't work out for them. It was still very good for Astralis to get that win. I think it's reflective more of their performance so far in the LEC than their 0 wins score was, because I do think that, for example, against Vitality, they should have won that game, even though they didn't manage to clutch that one. So I do think that even though it's not a very good team by any means, it's definitely still the worst team in the LEC at this point. Getting that win is a bit more fair to what they've been doing so far in the LEC. And it was a volatile best of 1. Still, you can start maybe work on finding out which players you want to keep heading into the summer split based off the small amounts of improvement there is within the team. So for them, I think it's good to get that first win, and also for the motivation, right? You saw everybody was incredibly demotivated in the team when 0-9. So with that all in mind, it's not looking good for Astralis, but yeah, good for them to get a win. SK Gaming, obviously, they did get a win against Mad Lions, which is very good for SK Gaming, because in theory, it's very possible still for SK Gaming to make it to the playoffs. I don't think it's going to work out that way, but getting a win against a team such as Mad Lions, who is still in contention for a playoff spot, gives SK Gaming some basis to work on as to, okay, how are we gonna make sure that going forward in the final weeks or in the summer split as well, we learn from how we won against this team and use that to build an identity for the team, because I don't think SK Gaming has been a team that has had much of an identity so far. So I think that's very important for them in that win against a team who maybe in the summer split could be fighting directly with SK Gaming for a playoff spot, right? I don't think SK Gaming is going to get there now, but in the future, maybe. And then these wins are very important. It's still very difficult for me to see where this team is going to go, though, in terms of what their identity is going to be. So what I said last week was, all right, use these final weeks to find the players you want to keep, and then start building on that for summer, and, make the changes you think are necessary. And I think these past weeks have really proven, okay, Treats, definitely keep him. He's a very good player, and I don't think many people would have thought that he was a problem anyway, but it's still good to get that affirmation, I suppose. He works very well together with Jesu. I think they are a good duo together in terms of personality, so maybe they want to hold hands going forward. But yeah, find out who is going to be playing well with Treats, because he is that star on your team in the support role, and supports are very important, obviously, because they roam a lot and help your lanes. And yeah, I think maybe, jungle support, see if Gilius is able to get that synergy really going with Treats. Just build around Treats. SK, do that, please. I think that's the most important lesson for them in the final weeks, and find out who works well with that guy. BDS is now on a 4-game losing streak. Did play against good teams though in the final week, so it's not really an indication of the team sinking, even though they have the biggest loss streak at this point in the LEC. As in, no other team is on a 4-game loss streak, or yeah. So they did have a good game for Adam the last weekend, which is very good for him, because he had been having a couple of rough weeks. So I think that's very good for his confidence and for his motivation and for his games going forward. That he's like, okay, I still have the potential to have a good early game and be in a position where I can carry a team. Unfortunately for him, BDS wasn't able to capitalize on his efforts in the past week. So that sucked for BDS as a whole, and it was obviously a bummer for Adam, because for him it would have been especially good to get that win and see, okay, I was the one who was able to lead the team to a victory, but that didn't happen. I still think it's very good for his confidence heading into this weekend, for example, where he's like, okay, I did show that I don't fall much behind my teammates when I get a decent matchup. And this weekend, BDS is playing against SK Gaming, who is together with BDS at 3 wins only. So for them, it's very important to win that and to really determine, okay, which one of us is a shittier team. And for Adam, I think that's also going to be important. But for BDS as a whole, this is a moment, that's a game. If you want to see the progress in your team, you have to defeat SK Gaming. So we'll get to that match a bit later on. Mad Lions had an 0-2 week. It's very rough in that team. I think Elyoya is the shining light on that roster. But other individuals aren't really showing up, in my opinion. And I think it's now pretty clear that Mad Lions is not going to amount to much in the spring split. I don't think they're going to make playoffs at this point. They are sacrificing the spring split for their long-term goal. Their coaching staff has had a lot of faith in their individuals and is always hammering down on developing their players. So it's pretty clear at this point that that has to be the summer split then, because this spring split is not going well. And I think what also was made very clear, also because of a post-game lobby segment that Mac did, that Humanoid was such a big factor on Mad Lions in terms of shot calling, and that's something Mad Lions is really lacking at the moment. You can see it in their play. So I hope for them that they are able to find somebody who steps up and can take over that role, because at this point in time, this is a team with individuals that have potential, but they just aren't able to get together and find how they want to play, because it's all over the place. And that's pretty disappointing to see, obviously, from a defending LEC champion, but who knows how they're gonna appear in the summer split. Vitality, I said in my last preview video that was going to be a test weekend for them. They really had to step up and show what they're made of. Well, Vitality failed. They went 0-2. They lost against XL, which is a pretty bad loss, obviously. And I think for them, it's just not looking like there is any progress. It's still a solo queue team. I did an interview with Selfmade, which you can find on my socials. Social you can find here. That the synergy is just not there across the board, which I worried about in previous previews. That as I said, Perks and Selfmade have synergy, but Selfmade doesn't have synergy with Labrov, which is a very important synergy. You acknowledge that, and even though the two played together last summer split, that synergy just isn't there yet, and that is something that they need to work on. Because if you go into the playoffs, you can say, okay, we're going to turn it around as much as you want, but the teams with better jungle support synergy, the teams with better team play overall are going to beat you. No matter how talented you are, you need to be a team in these best of fives to have that longevity and to have that resilience in a longer series. So I really wonder when this team is going to be a team. Might not even happen in spring, might have to wait until summer. The vibe in the team apparently is still very good, so that's something, I guess. But I wonder how long that's going to stay good if they perhaps might not make playoffs, because they are in a position where they could miss out on making playoffs. And Perks is a clutch player. He is somebody who, when it matters most, steps up. But I think even though he has been the best player on Vitality this split so far, I wonder if he is able to get his team together in time at this point. It would be another highlight in his career if he is able to do so. One of many already. So yeah, I think all eyes on the synergy in Vitality, if that's gonna sprout, especially between Selma and Labrov. That's something I want to see develop in the next weeks. XL, then they have clear improvements. They are on the up and up. I think Markoon is really finding a spot. Mickey and Patrick are finding their synergy, and Patrick, especially last week, I made him my player of the week, because even though in his first game he made a pretty bad error by standing in a tri-brush and got ganked. He turned it around incredibly well, and that to me was the first sign of seeing the Patrick that we have seen before in the LEC, where he was the carry for Excel and basically had to try and drag them across the finish line. This split so far, I hadn't really seen that yet, where he's a bit more quiet, but this was a weekend where I thought, okay, there's Patrick. So now they have 4 players whom I'm pretty certain of at this point. The only one I'm wondering about at this point is Finn. Haven't seen him do too much. I think so. Let's see if he is able to fit into Excel's way of playing the game as well and step to the beat of what the other players are providing. But overall, it's a very solid weekend. A 2-0. They won against direct playoffs competitor Vitality. So very good progress from Excel overall. Not perfect, clearly, but good improvement. Misfits, I criticized them last week a bit and said, hey, it's the Viteo show. When are other players going to step up and be a carry? Well, Neon answered the call, and he had 2 amazing games on Jinx. You could have made him the player of the week last week as well, because he played very well. I think the win against BDS was expected for Misfits. At least I predicted them to win that game. But winning against Rogue for Misfits was really good to see. Rogue made mistakes, and Misfits punished them very well. They played together better as a team. And yeah, man, they are really making me eat my words, because I thought Misfits going to be a 9th place team because they didn't have much experience. But this team is developing very well. So props to Misfits. I really enjoy watching this team at this point, because I think they have a lot to offer. Especially Viteo has a lot to offer. So I hope that they can find that place where they can either play around Neon or play around Viteo, and both of them can pull out some tricks and be that consistent factor that the team needs. Yeah, very positive about Misfits. Fnatic, similar to Vitality, I said Fnatic really had to show last week, okay, how much progress they had made. Well, Fnatic passed the test, in my opinion. We did see Resorg finally in that team. I think that he had been very invisible, well, fairly invisible, or whatever you want to call it, in Fnatic. He hadn't been the Resorg that he was on Misfits last year, where he was a standout jungler. He didn't really seem to know how he wanted to play within the team, but it seemed that Humanoid kind of took him by the hand, and they were roaming together, and Resorg was really making the plays that we wanted to see for a few weeks now. For him, and it was really good to see him involved in the game. And Fnatic as a team, as a whole, looked really good. Well, not like really, really good. They're not like top world contenders or something like this at this point, but you could see the progress in the 2 games that they played. I think you saw clear progress. I do still think this team has ways to go in order to get into their peak shape, or whatever you call it. I think Resorg and Wunder need to work a bit more together. I also want to see more from Resorg and Hylissang. Jungle support duo is very important. So I think that is what Fnatic should focus on now a bit more. But overall, I'm very happy to see that this team is really finding its groove at this point. And from what we heard from the Fnatic players, it's Humanoid who is stepping up as a leader. So just to illustrate yet again how important he was on Mad Lions, it's very good to see that he is that same important figure now on Fnatic, and this team is coming together. So props to them. G2 is on a win streak. They went 2-0 against Mad Lions and Astralis, who aren't the strongest opponents, of course, at this point, but it was still steady performance. What I'm wondering most about with G2 at this point is, okay, what's the next level for them? How are they gonna evolve? They're now stable and they're good, and I like seeing this team at this point, but now they have to push that boundary. If that makes any sense, they are stable at a good level, but they need to get to the next one to really get that champion vibe going, right? And for me, especially Flacket is somebody who needs to push that boundary, because so far he's a stable factor, but he plays passively. He isn't a very aggressive, proactive bot laner, for example. I don't see him do that a whole lot, which I think is very important. If you look at Hansama, for example, last year, you can even see now Upset and Hylissang are the best bot lane duo in the LEC at the moment. They play very aggressively. So that is something Comp and Trimby are another example. Kaiser and Unforgiven, even though they're not the best bot lane duo, it's better to be proactive so you can reel it in and, find the boundaries of what you can do and know them, than be a bit more on the back foot. So I hope G2 is gonna shift a bit more attention to Flacket and say, okay, what can you do? How can we make you an enabler? Because they are in a relatively stable spot at this point, and they have an easy game, in my opinion. We'll get to that in a bit this weekend. So let's see. Rogue had an 0-2 week. Is Rogue dead? No. Astralis game was a dumb one to lose. And it should be a pretty free win, in my opinion, against that team. Even if you're being more experimental, which Rogue was with the Ahri, of course. But it's also best of one, so they're a bit volatile. I wouldn't think too much about that loss, to be honest. What I would say is that their loss against Misfits was a bit more worrying, because Misfits just played clean, and Rogue, even though they normally play very clean, they played with a strategy. I think they had the Rise, they have the Ornn, it's all standard stuff from Rogue, and still they lost. So that is a game that I would review, being Rogue more than the Astralis one. I think the Astralis one, we tried something and it failed. So I think that is something Rogue should look more seriously at. I still think this team is very good. I think people are gonna overreact and say, oh, Rogue has been figured out. I think that's something that needs to be shown in this week and next week. If Rogue goes 0-2 this week and next week, or is struggling heavily with all the opponents they're playing against, then yes, you can say Rogue has been figured out, and it's worrying. But 1-0-2 weekend after going 9-0, it's not something to worry too much about, especially if you're being more experimental. And also, I will say, I think I said it in one of my other previews, I don't know which one actually, but going 0-2 or tanking a loss, and I'm mostly referring to the Misfits one, so tanking a loss is good for your long-term development, because that gives you actual points. Okay, hey, listen, we need to wake up. This is going wrong to the point where opponents are finally capitalizing on them. We need to fix that. How do we fix it? So getting those losses in is a good realization of what actually needs to happen. They're a good learning tool. And now I hope that Rogue is gonna be able to get those blemishes out of their play and continue being the dominant force that they were, because it's very good to have a team that's very dominant in the LEC, especially in the regular split, because that gives the other team so much to learn from, and so much to, for example, Rogue is very good at figuring out the meta. Give the other teams the pointers of, hey, this is what you need to do better. So we'll see if Rogue is able to climb back onto the horse after going 0-2. So with that said, let's get into the matches that are going to be played this weekend. We kick off with Fnatic against Astralis. Won't be much of a surprise that I think that Fnatic is going to easily win this, even though Astralis got their first win. I think that was more due to Rogue failing rather than Astralis suddenly playing extremely well, as I discussed before. So Fnatic should win this one with ease, in my opinion. Misfits versus Excel. This unironically might be the most exciting game we're going to see on the day, because Misfits is on the up and up, Excel is on the up and up. Both are really looking to secure maybe a top 4 finish heading into the playoffs, so they have the advantage of that double bracket where they can lose a best of 5 series and not be eliminated yet. And I think this series, or this game rather, even though it's a best of 1, can give us a really good indicator of, okay, how much have these teams progressed since the start of the split, because both of these teams have had developmental struggles. Misfits, as I highlighted before, and in other previews as well, it was the Viteo show. First it was Mersa and Zlatan who needed to step up and get more comfortable in the role, which they did. And then it was Neon who stepped up and became a carry. So Excel, on the other hand, had obviously the fact that they benched Advienne and got in Mickey X and needed to develop that synergy with the new support in the middle of the split. So this match is actually very exciting for me to see, okay, who's going to fight for the top 4 spot very seriously. Might very well be Excel, but I do think that Misfits at this point is better as a team and has higher highs in their team than Excel. Even though I would say that the team play of Excel is slightly better than that of Misfits. So it's almost a coin flip for me, this one. I would give the edge to the individual stars of Misfits because they have showed up big time in the past weeks. And I do think that that is something that Excel is going to struggle with and is going to struggle to really pin down against Misfits. But yeah, if Excel wins this one, I wouldn't be surprised at all because as a team, they are a bit ahead of Misfits in this point. Still, Misfits wins this one, in my opinion. BDS against Vitality. Yeah, two French organizations. Well, BDS is French, Belgian, I guess. So they're not really French, but they have French roots, big French fan base, both of them. Vitality is not looking great. BDS is also not looking great, but I still think Vitality is going to win this based on individual skill. It's hard to deny that they outclass BDS in every single position heading into the match. And something needs to go catastrophically wrong, I think, in order for Vitality to lose this one. Might be that they get screwed in draft again, as they did against Excel a bit, who flexed the Zeri on them instead of bot with mid. Even though I still think Vitality could have done way more in that game, but that's beside the point. I still think Vitality should win this one with ease. If they lose this one, then I don't know. Then all the alarm bells need to start ringing at that team because you cannot lose this one. If you still have to play against some of your top competitors, and you might say, okay, we can lose those and still make playoffs. This is one you cannot lose. SK Gaming against G2 is the fourth match of the day. Yeah, I mean, G2 is looking so good right now, and even though SK did get their win and is showing some signs of improvement, they are not at the standard of G2 yet. So I think G2 is not going to have much problem with this one. And we close out day one with Rogue versus Mad Lions. Yeah, Rogue went 0-2, Mad Lions went 0-2. So it's not match of the week, obviously, but still the final match of the day. So it has a bit more spotlight. It's going to be played on stage. What do I say? It's just Rogue who's going to win this, in my opinion. I don't know what Mad Lions can do in order to win this one against Rogue, because even though Rogue went 0-2, as a team, they're much ahead of Mad Lions. Rogue, as I said, stumbled. They're probably going to learn from this. Mad Lions, I think, is not a team at the moment and doesn't have structure. Rogue has the structure. So, yeah, I don't see a way where Mad Lions realistically win this one aside from some cheesy draft or Rogue fumbling their draft, which is unlikely because it's only really happened once, maybe this split. So, yeah, Rogue wins that final game, I think. And then we go to the next day. It is, oh, there's some LCS in there as well. Well, we don't want any of that. There we go. Excel versus Astralis is the first game on Saturday. Excel should win this. If they really want to claim their first playoffs appearance, then you cannot lose against Astralis, especially after beating a team like Vitality. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Astralis has the cheese methods to work against a team such as Excel, who have great team play. Astralis has actually pretty decent early game, but I don't think it's going to be enough to set Excel so far behind that Excel is going to be unable to climb back into the game, even if they fall behind massively. Well, they're not going to fall behind massively, but if they fall behind a bit, I think Excel is going to climb back pretty easily. So Excel wins that one. BDS against SK Gaming then. The battle of, whoa, okay. Realistically, a bit of a battle of who cares, because these two teams are not going to make playoffs, and that's pretty clear. So why would we care about this game? The things that we can care about is the progress that I spoke about in the evaluation of each of these teams. So let's see if BDS is able to convert an early lead that they might get, which they have gotten against teams pretty consistently in the past weeks. I think their early game is pretty decent. If they can convert that into a win against SK Gaming. For SK Gaming, it's I think they are a bit more resilient as a team. And I would think that SK Gaming wins this game against BDS based on the line of development I've seen for them. Mad Lions versus Misfits. I'm just going to go by the standings and development and say Misfits is going to win this. They have a far better mid laner at this point. I also think that Neon is more reliable than Unforgiven, even though Unforgiven has had highlight plays. I think the synergy between Neon and Mersa allows Neon to shine a bit better than Unforgiven and Kaiser, because I think Kaiser's been really struggling. In the jungle, Elyoya will beat Zlatan, but I don't think that's going to be enough. Armut might actually get an advantage on Hirit as well, because I don't think Hirit has had the best split so far. But overall, if I look at team performance, it's going to be a Misfits win, which would be rough for Mad Lions, because that means another 0-2 week for them if my predictions play out correctly. But we'll talk about that in the next preview if that ends up happening. Vitality versus Rogue, very exciting game. Could have been the match of the week in any other week, but we'll get to the match of the week in a bit. Because this is the best of one Kings of Rogue versus the super team of Vitality. A very important match for Vitality especially, I think, because this is a game where you want to show, okay, hey, we haven't developed maybe very well, or our games haven't looked very good, but against the top teams we can pull it together and we can show what we are capable of. If I have to guess, I would say that Rogue is going to win this purely because they are so structured and Vitality isn't. So I think Rogue is better at playing around the map, for example, realizing where they have a disadvantage and play towards their advantages better than Vitality. Whereas I think Vitality, if they have a disadvantage, is likelier to try to, or if they find an unexpected advantage, really focus on that rather than, this is also something Selfmade said, rather than following their game plan. So I think Rogue is more consistent at a high level, Vitality is volatile, and I think Rogue is going to punish that volatility. But, you know, this is a game where you can say, okay, Vitality can win this because they have the star power, and Perks, as discussed before, is somebody who in clutch situations is able to get his team together in many occasions already. So G2 versus Fnatic as the final game of the day. Yeah, what to say about this one, huh? It's a tough one because both teams have been making a lot of progress. In my opinion, if you look at the split as a whole, G2, I think, is maybe in terms of individual performances not on the same level as Fnatic at this point, but this team looks better. Whereas Fnatic, well, it's the reverse, right? I think their individuals are performing at a consistently higher level than G2. But as a team, I don't think Fnatic is at the same synergistic level as G2. Still, I do think that with Hylissang and Upset in the bot lane, Fnatic is going to find a massive lead, because that is where Fnatic's real disparity between bot lane skills can be found, in my opinion. So if they play through that, I think there's very little that can go wrong, because those two are just such a good duo. This is a game where Caps need to really step up, because Humanoid can fall behind. We've seen this, and Caps need to capitalize on that in order for his team to find a significant advantage. But overall, I would say it's maybe a 60-40 for Fnatic. So I think Fnatic will win that one. And that is my preview for the 6th week of the LEC Spring Split. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have different thoughts, make sure to leave a comment, and otherwise stay tuned for more content as usual.